Module 3. Motivation. What drives and motivates people? In this module, we will look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, rewards and punishments, the expectancy theory, and the idea of satisfaction and growth. We will also look at the systematic differences between people and how these impact on the individual. We have already seen that people respond to change through a psychological process of transition, and have noted that people respond differently, as individuals, to a given change. To explore these differences, we need to understand what drives or motivates people. This is a complex field of study. In the space we can allow here, our aim will be to offer a view of the practical implications of a few key perspectives. These are drawn from foundational work on human motivation dating back to the middle of the 20th century. Many people have come across Maslow's concept of the hierarchy of needs either in academic studies or in business settings. As shown in Figure 1.5, Maslow suggested that people have 5 basic needs. At the most basic level, people need food, water, sleep and shelter, the physiological needs. Safety needs, sometimes called security needs, represent the need for an orderly, secure world with a low level of perceived threat to life and the future. This includes the reasonable expectation that my physiological needs will be met tomorrow as well as today. It is symbolized for many in personal and work routines. Maslow refers to the next level of his hierarchy as love needs, sometimes called social needs. By this, he means the craving for love, affection, social interaction, and belongingness. Esteem needs are satisfied by a combination of self-esteem, strongly anchored in real achievements and capabilities, and respect and recognition from others, together with the status this frequently grants. These support self-confidence and feelings of self-worth. Maslow's final, basic need is expressed as a need for self-actualization. This is a desire to be the best that I can be, a longing to fulfill my potential and to use my creativity in accordance with my particular talents. Maslow writes, a musician must make music, an artist must paint, a poet must write, to be ultimately happy. This need we may call self-actualization. Work, at its best, has the possibility of addressing all these basic needs. In view of earlier discussions about endings, this framework can be used by leaders and managers to assess the likely impacts of endings and losses on different people. The point that Maslow makes about these basic needs is that they tend to be hierarchically ordered. That is, it is only after physiological needs are sufficiently satisfied that individual concern focuses on safety needs, and so on up the hierarchy. In other words, a lower-level need has power to motivate behavior until it is sufficiently satisfied, then the next higher category of need tends to take over. Rewards and punishments. Early experiments with animal models were based on simple ideas about modifying behavior using schedules of reward and punishment. Some of these are described briefly in the Effective Change Management Handbook in Chapter 9. Rewards were usually food items, and punishments typically mild electric shocks or cold water. Some key conclusions are summarized here. A specific behavior that is rewarded tends to be repeated more frequently, but when the pattern of rewarding the behavior is withdrawn, frequency tends to reduce. If a particular behavior is rewarded only sometimes, the frequency of the behavior tends to increase more slowly, but it also dies away more slowly when the reward schedule is withdrawn. Punishment associated with a specific behavior tends to reduce the frequency of that behavior, but less strongly than rewarding an alternative behavior. Animal models used simple input-output one stimulus response, where desired behaviors are rewarded through reinforcement. This way of thinking is associated strongly with physiological and safety needs. Expectancy theory. There are, of course, dangers in taking animal experiments and applying the results to people. One thread of psychological research that explores the importance of thinking in specifically human motivation is known as expectancy theory. The diagram used on this slide, although not included in the handbook, is included here to help explain the nature of this formula. In a change situation, understanding the value, both positive or negative, of the change from the perspective of different stakeholders is important. It is also important to do all that is possible to influence the strength of their belief that their discretionary effort can affect their performance, and that their performance can affect the outcome of the change. If the change has positive value to the stakeholders, this encourages their belief that they can make a difference. If the stakeholders concerned believe the change to be the work of the devil, the less they believe they can make a difference, the better. An application of expectancy theory is described in Chapter 7, Section A2 of your handbook. Satisfaction and growth, extrinsic versus intrinsic motivators. Frederick Herzberg famously researched job satisfaction as a component of human motivation. He and his team interviewed hundreds of people, asking them to describe critical incidents that had led them to feel good about their work. The results of these interviews produced a list of factors that lead to positive job satisfaction, such as that shown on the right in Table 1.1, approximately in that order of significance. Achievement. Recognition. The work itself, job content. Responsibility. Advancement, promotion. Growth, personal/professional development. The research team also asked the reverse question: what had led people to feel less satisfied with their jobs? The results of these inquiries are listed on the left in Table 1.1. Company policy and administration. Supervision, technical quality of oversight. Supervision, relationship with supervisor. Working conditions. Salary. Relationship with peers. Personal life. Relationship with subordinates. Status. Security. What Herzberg and his colleagues noticed was that dissatisfiers were different in kind to the satisfiers. Dissatisfiers were all about the context of the job, extrinsic, whilst the satisfiers were in various ways built into the job itself, intrinsic. He also noted that beyond a certain level, the dissatisfiers could no more create positive motivation than good drains could create positive health. If in poor condition, they lead to poor outcomes, but in themselves they do not create good ones. Satisfiers, on the other hand, were directly associated with job satisfaction and increased motivation to work. Satisfaction and growth has three key motivators. 1. Autonomy. People like to be self-directed, with a high degree of freedom to decide the direction, methods and circumstances of our work. 2. Mastery. People like to do things well, and to get better at doing things they value, so opportunities to grow, develop and excel at their work are intrinsically motivating. 3. Purpose. People like to feel that their work has meaning and value, and will choose to invest themselves in activities they consider worthwhile. The implications of Herzberg's work caused some large organizations to restructure jobs. They moved away from production line thinking towards autonomous workgroups that followed a product through the production process, seeing the completed results of their work. For our present purpose, it is important to consider the impact of change initiatives on both satisfiers and dissatisfiers. Will the outcomes for key stakeholders increase dissatisfaction? Will they promote positive satisfaction? Confirmation of Herzberg's general findings comes from the author Dan Pink. He cites MIT research showing that for tasks requiring even a modest amount of cognitive skill, increases in financial reward are not related to increased performance. Indeed, the reverse may be true. This implies that organizations need to pay people sufficient that pay is no longer an issue, in Herzberg's terms, not a dissatisfier, but that beyond that financial reward may have limited value. Survival and learning anxieties. Describing the process of change, Shine compares two types of anxiety as motivators of behavior. These are learning anxiety and survival anxiety. Most people have, through their lives, developed a level of learning anxiety. They have struggled with the frustration of trying to work out a problem that seems intractable. They have experienced the feeling of incompetence whilst trying to learn or improve a new skill. They have made mistakes and experienced the emotional penalty as they are criticized by others. All these create a learning anxiety that makes change inherently difficult. Of course, some people have high levels of such anxiety and some much lower levels, but the experience of learning anxiety is widely shared. Change will require unlearning old ways and learning new ones, and the result of learning anxiety is to inhibit change to a greater or lesser degree. Shine suggests that for organizations to change at an acceptable pace, they have to learn to unfreeze by creating a competing and greater anxiety, survival anxiety. Unfreezing requires 3 elements in order to be managed effectively. Disconfirmation, creating the disturbing belief that the current position is not sustainable, that it is not working anymore. Creation of guilt or anxiety, the belief that if I do not change I shall fail to achieve my goals and that the negative consequences of this will be serious, ranging from experiencing disapproval to seeing my team disbanded, seeing the organization fail or losing my job. Creation of psychological safety, through a clear plan with suitable support and coaching. This sounds at variance with the 2 preceding elements, and is designed to prevent the survival anxiety becoming too great, leaving people paralyzed by anxiety. It offers a safe way forward. To motivate people to make a desired change, it is necessary to create sufficient survival anxiety to destabilize the current situation and drive them forward. At the same time, it is necessary to support people in such a way that they feel safe enough to learn effectively. This psychological safety is created through provision of training and practice, support and encouragement, a non-judgmental approach that does not punish errors, coaching, acknowledgement and reward for effort in the right direction, and experimentation. Personal growth. Referring back to Maslow's hierarchy or needs, the highest level is represented by self-actualization, which represents the need people have for personal development and growth. Carl Rogers studied the conditions that facilitate personal growth. In his work as a clinical psychologist, he discovered that what most helped clients move forward in their lives was a particular quality of relationship. This is summed up by his 3 core conditions for personal growth and change. Congruence, being authentic and genuine in the relationship. This means being aware enough of one's own thoughts and feelings that people experience integrity, that they can trust you. Unconditional positive regard, an attitude of acceptance of and respect for a person as he or she is, without judgment and without suggesting conditions or expectations to make them acceptable. Empathy, a willingness to understand another person within his or her own frame of reference, communicating by word and action that one understands their thoughts and feelings. For any leader or manager of people through change, or for any agent of change, offering these core conditions to colleagues and subordinates will play a major part in creating the psychological safety discussed by Shine, and as a result will support people in making the personal changes upon which the success of the wider change initiative will depend. Take a moment to do the following activity. What approaches to motivating individuals seems to work best when managing change in an organization? What examples can you think of where specific motivations were used to achieve the desired outcome from change? The systematic differences between people. We have explored some aspects of motivation and how this can affect the willingness of people to embrace change. Understanding these aspects is part of a picture. At a deeper level, people seem to be wired differently from each other. What we may describe as personality or temperament means that one person will react to change in a way that differs systematically from the way another person will respond. Understanding some of these systematic differences between people allows us to manage our relationships with a wide range of people more effectively. This understanding can inform the content, styles, and channels of communication that we choose, enabling us to connect effectively with as many people as possible. It can also help us to interpret the responses we receive more appropriately. The MBTI registered model is based on 4 pairs of opposite preferences that people show. In each case, neither preference is better than its opposite, they simply lead to different choices. The analogy of being right or left-handed is often used. We can do most things with either hand, but one feels more comfortable than the other, and through regular use has become stronger. There are 4 pairs of preferences. Extrovert, introvert, abbreviated as E or I. How people are energized. Sensing, intuiting, abbreviated as S or N. The N avoids confusion with introvert, how people process information. Thinking, feeling, abbreviated as T or F. How people make decisions. Judging, perceiving, abbreviated as J or P. The situations people prefer. Conflicts and complementarity. From the descriptions of these types, it is easy to see how different people might misunderstand one another, especially when they have opposing preferences. They may end up in conflict, not because of the content of an issue, but because of their different ways of seeing things. The ideal is to look for the strengths that each person can contribute to a given situation. For example, the objectivity, rationality and care for fairness of the thinking person will be of great importance to a good outcome from a meeting to discuss the impact of change on a work group. So will be the natural sense of humanity and sensitive understanding of the people involved, which will be natural to the feeling colleague. Ideally, we value both, whilst respecting the different preferences from which they come. And if the 2 individuals can begin to understand and respect each other's contribution, they could begin to make a great team. Personality implications for change. The differences between people highlighted by considering their personality type have implications for many aspects of change. For example, in facilitating a working group, using a format that allows time for those who are more introverted to think before they speak will prevent their ideas being lost in the more in-the-moment flow of ideas from the extrovert members of the group. Chapter 10, Section C3 says more about working with different types in a facilitation setting. When communicating information during a change initiative, we can ensure that the big picture, the vision for the change, is clear, meeting the needs of those with an intuitive preference, whilst providing a backup resource of data and facts, to meet the needs of those with a sensing preference. For anyone involved in facilitating change, it is important to learn to observe, engage with, and get the best from a variety of people. This is a key element of ongoing personal and professional development. A framework such as that used in the MBTI can provide a useful structure for such observations. Take a few moments to consider the following. How does individual difference affect people's responses to change? What can happen when people with same and different preferences work together in a team? End of module. In this module, we have looked at motivation, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, rewards, punishments, and the 3 key motivators for satisfaction and growth, survival and learning anxieties. The systematic differences between people, how different people will react differently to change depending on their type, and how this can have big implications on change potential. In the next module, we will look at change and the organization and organizational culture.